Okay, the purpose of this video is to demonstrate the process required to replace the dampers found in the ZRT Type 1 terminals in reference to the Project 500 North Lakeshore Drive condominiums. The purpose here is to show the parts involved in replacing the damper with a damper that has a flow regulator in it, and show you what tools are required and the length of time it's going to take to perform this function in the field. It's normally done on assembly line at the factory, but the project obviously requires some replacement in the field, so we're going to briefly show you the components required to make the change. First of all, this is a damper. It's a Type 1 damper that's found on the project currently. You'll notice obviously it doesn't have the flow regulator in the damper blade itself. The one we're going to replace it with is this one. The damper will actually ship like this, assembled with the flow regulator and the retention spring for replacement in the field. This is an example of the damper assembly that was removed from a unit exactly like the one found in 500 North Lakeshore. The reason I am not going to remove it from this assembly is simply because our function is to do this in the field. To give you an idea of the components, things to be aware of in the replacement process, you'll notice here the damper itself will slide into the slot at 2 points on this assembly, here and here. Each end of the damper shaft will have bushings on it that can either be replaced in the field or to reuse the ones that are already there. One thing to notice in the process, the end of the damper shaft has a flat in it that's on the end. You can see it's not rounded. The intent of that is to slide inside this notch here that's found in the motor. It's really important in this process that removing the damper blade from this motor assembly, that the end fits in this notch. Being careful once it's removed that the end of, or one of these little tines in the motor is not broken in the process. If the motor tine is broken, the entire motor has to be replaced. We want to avoid that at all costs. Just to explain the process here on the table, the damper will ship with the retention spring placed within the small notch that's laser cut in this retention mount. The process to replace the damper will be releasing this spring from its existing installation, sliding it into the notch, then with a small pry bar prying this damper assembly out of this bracket and these two notches. The only tools required are a small pry bar, which is used to pry the damper out of the clips, and a cordless drill or powered screwdriver to remove the grill cover on the unit. The intent here is to show not only the parts but the length of time that it's going to take to perform this function in the field. The second part of the video will demonstrate the length of time. We'll go ahead and put a stopwatch on it to give you an idea of what it's going to take to do that. Here we're going to demonstrate replacement of the Type 1 ZRT damper that's found on 500 North Lakeshore condo project with the new dampers that include the car minimum flow regulator. The process is pretty simple. It's removing the grill, replacing the damper blade, and putting the grill back on. I have a stopwatch. I'm going to go ahead and time this so you can see how long it takes. First step is obviously removing the existing grill. Inside the ZRT you'll find the Type 1 blade. The process is taking the leg of the spring, pulling it back to its retention clip found on the damper blade, carefully lifting the blade, and with the pry bar slowly snapping it out of its retaining clips. On the damper you'll find 3 bushings. We either want to reuse them or use new ones that have been shipped. In this case we're going to reuse them. There's a small bushing that goes on the left near the spring and 2 larger bushings on the right shaft end. From there, those bushings simply snap back into the retaining brackets found on the assembly. You can see he simply snaps that back into place, releases that spring from its retention clip. He manually lifts the blade to make sure it's not binding on anything. From there, we'll go ahead and power the unit up from the local switch to make sure that the ZRT damper blade opens smoothly and under its normal power. Obviously it does. We turn the switch off. Let the blade return to its closed position and reinstall the grill. Once it's installed, the replacement's complete. So you can see that took exactly 2.5 minutes. So you can see how easy the procedure is.